we also have Mr. R.N. Chaubey in an exclusive interaction right here. He's India's Civil Aviation Secretary and he joins us live right here on ET Now. We really appreciate you taking time out and being with us this afternoon, sir, after announcing what many believe is the ground-setting policy for Indian civil aviation. There has been a lot of thrust, and I'm going to take questions as per subject. There has been a lot of thrust on regional connectivity. You were talking about doing away with service tax on the regional routes. You're talking about ATF exemption. You're talking about 2,500 rupee carrier charge. The question that I have in mind really, sir, is how is this going to boost regional connectivity? And this is going to significantly impact the Indian exchequer. Is the Finance Ministry on board, and will the states play ball as far as ATF exemption is concerned, because it's a huge revenue stream?
Thank you, Supriya. Let me first of all tell you that as far as regional connectivity is concerned, we are not asking anything from the exchequer, because we are going to levy a separate amount of 2%, and it is this which is going to fund the initiative of regional connectivity. It is not going to be any burden on the exchequer at all. As far as state governments are concerned, we have made this offer within the policy, as you would have noticed, that the state governments will have to come up with their own support in the form of significantly reducing the VAT on aviation turbine fuel, which is supplied from the regional connectivity scheme airports. They will have to provide security free of cost. They will have to provide connectivity to the road connectivity to the airport. They will also have to provide substantially concessional tariff for water and power which will be supplied. You see, the idea is that if the states want that the regional connectivity should happen in their states, then they will have to also own this scheme. We want them to be co-opted into this scheme. And I have no doubt that after all today, no flying is happening from these regional connectivity airports, nothing. So there is no VAT coming from these airports. There are no amounts, no growth in economic growth is happening around these airports. It is for the good of the state that they will come on board, and I have no doubt about it.
Fair point indeed. The states will stand to gain, and which is why they will play ball. Scheduled commuter airlines with light touch regulation, you're talking about a 2 crore paid up capital, no minimum aircraft the connectivity required. The obvious question, sir, there is that are you kind of taking security here a little too lightly? That's something that your critics have said. I'm not the one quoting it.
I appreciate the views which the critics have, but let me tell you, security and safety are something which are determined by our security regulator and safety regulator. Security regulator is the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, and the safety regulator is the Director General of Civil Aviation. Let me assure you that there shall not be slightest compromise on either security or safety, none whatsoever. All that we have done is that we have brought down the entry barriers. Earlier, you had to have a much higher level of equity and many more aircraft in order to be eligible to obtain the air operator's permit. We are saying that if we want regional flying to happen, then these entry barriers must be brought down, and that's what we have done.
Fair point indeed, sir. There is a bit of a dampener here, at least for commuters like me. You were proposing a 2% additional levy on air tickets outside, of course, of the regional routes. Was that really necessary, and is this not going to be a dampening sentiment?
Well, let me, Supriya, tell you that if we can't do it now, when the crude prices are probably at their lowest, when the airlines are making profit, as you know, most of our airlines have turned a profit in this quarter and the last, and when the competition is at its hottest, I think this is absolutely the opportune time for us to start levying this 2%. And after all, 2% on a 5,000 rupee ticket comes to about 100 rupees. So I don't think it is really all that much, and that should be possible for the commuters to pay this amount, which will only go towards providing viability gap funding to those commuters who are flying on the regional routes. I don't think it is a big amount at all, and the time is absolutely right.
All right, the time is absolutely right given the crude crash, and that's a point well taken. The industry has largely welcomed your draft policy. What some operators are upset with is your non-commitment as far as the 5/20 controversial rule is concerned. You've given all three options, whether to continue with it, abolish it, or replace it with domestic flying credits. Why could you not take a final call and put the view of the ministry, as it were, in this draft policy to get views on?
This was one of the issues which we addressed during the press conference also, Supriya. You would appreciate that what we have put in public domain is a draft civil aviation policy, and the whole idea behind putting a draft policy for consultation with the stakeholders is that we do not have closed mind even on issues where we have indicated certain position. We don't have a closed mind at all, otherwise there would be no point in going ahead and consulting the stakeholders. As far as 5/20 is concerned, as I mentioned, there are three options, and we want to elicit and get the views from all the stakeholders before we take a final call. It is a matter of another 2 months, but let me also assure you that when the time comes and when we are going ahead with the final policy, let me assure you that there shall be absolutely no ambiguity as far as the position is concerned on this rule, none whatsoever.
There will be details and there will be no ambiguity, but if I were to ask you your personal view, because many people call the 5/20 rule unnecessary, something that has outlived its relevance, especially given your own position of opening up Indian skies, getting in more carriers here, you've got to make a level playing field for them. Though that rule perhaps has outlived its relevance. Will you agree with me?
I wouldn't like to take a position on that yet, because as I mentioned, we have elicited views on all three options, and I must have intellectual honesty to say that I am keeping my minds open to consider any formulation, any suggestion which is coming our way. But presently, as far as liberalization and opening up is concerned, one of the views suggestions which you made related to level playing field, and you would have noticed that in one of the options where we have suggested replacing 5/20 by the system of domestic flying credits, we have stated that there shall be a requirement of earning certain minimum level of domestic flying credits every year in order to ensure that, and this will be applicable across all airlines, whether they are old or new or whatever, and therefore level playing field will certainly be ensured.
A very quick question, sir, on the bilateral auction scheme, and the policy very clearly says that you can look at a higher FDI of over 49% if the country is within 5,000 kilometers. Would you explain your position on that? Because the present FDI limit is 49%. How much higher can it go up to? Is this only 50% that we're talking about? And what was the necessity to bring this clause in?
Supriya, the way it works is like this, that when we have bilateral agreements with various countries, and actually we have 109 bilateral agreements with as many countries, what it means is that the bilateral rights will be used by the designated domestic carriers of both the countries. So the whole idea of what is called domestic carrier is essentially on account of the fact that there is a thing called bilateral agreement. Now, once bilateral agreements are no longer necessary, so to say, and they are replaced by open skies, after that, there may not be much meaning in saying that, such and such carrier is a domestic carrier and some other carrier is not a domestic carrier. And that's the reason why we are saying that 5 years hence, when there is a possibility of going complete open skies for all parts of the world, then that would also be an opportune moment to take a look whether we should continue to have such a thing as FDI below 49% and something called domestic airlines, where the domestically held equity is more than 50%. Probably it may not be necessary, it may be inconsistent with the policy of open skies, but that is something on which a call will be taken only then, and there is no firm commitment at the moment, except to say that the two go hand in hand.
Fair point indeed. The one, and I'm going to wrap this up, but the one thing that you've been lauded extensively for is the MRO policy, the fact that you're trying to retain that 1 billion worth of business that gets shipped overseas, and also the fact that you're looking to make India an MRO hub of the region. You know, like you rightly pointed out, in the regional connectivity, perhaps, of course, this did not hold true, the fact that the exchequer would have been dented, but the fact that you're talking about no custom duty here, the fact that you're again talking about VAT on MRO zero, there is going to be a substantial impact on the exchequer. Am I understanding this clearly? And how much worth of business do you expect to be generated and also being attracted to India with this new MRO norms?
I would put it this way, Supriya, that when our MRO business is going outside the country at the moment, almost 85% of our $1 billion is going outside. Where is the question of loss of revenue? It is only notional. And the whole idea is, if we want that the MRO industry in India should become competitive with the competitors such as those in Gulf or Colombo or Singapore, then we will have to create appropriate ecosystem. And that's what we have attempted. That on the taxation issues which were making MRO uncompetitive, we would take care of those taxation issues, and we will ensure that the MRO industry within the country becomes hugely popular, not only with the airlines within the country, but with the airlines outside as well. And the loss of revenue which you mentioned is only notional, because no revenues are coming at the moment.
That's a fair point indeed. It's notional loss, and like you rightly said, business is being shipped out. One final question before I let you go, sir. This is, of course, the draft policy. It will go through interministerial consultations. By when do we expect the final policy to be in place, and do you expect the policy to go through some substantial changes in the course of this interministerial consultation, or do you largely expect the contours to remain of what you've put out?
I would put it this way, that we expect that the final policy will get approved in about a couple of months' time from now. And as to your question, whether there would be substantial changes in the final policy over what we have proposed in the draft policy, well, we have done some amount of sensitization within the government system to ensure that the broad policy directions are okay. And therefore, we do not expect very many significant changes as far as the issues relating to the government side are concerned. But notwithstanding that, if there are good suggestions which are coming as part of the consultation process, then any change which will happen in this draft civil aviation policy will only be for the better and not for the worse.
Mr. Arvind Chaubey, India Civil Aviation Secretary, speaking exclusively to ET Now here. So we really appreciate you taking time out and speaking to us first to India's #1 business news channel.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNow Live. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.